All right, let's dive in. We're taking a deep dive today into Lucid Group.
Lucid Group sounds familiar.
They're making waves in the EV world, and you sent over their 2024 annual report.
Their official Form 10K.
Exactly. So we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of their business.
All the details, their financials, their risks, their operations, it's all in here.
It's a pretty fascinating read.
Okay.
And one thing that jumps out right away is their mission statement: to advance the state-of-the-art of EV technology for the benefit of all.
Bold statement.
It is. It is.
It really sets the stage for what they're trying to do.
And how they're going about it is pretty interesting, too, like their focus on in-house innovation.
Right, vertical integration.
Yeah, which means they want to control as much of the production process as possible.
Exactly, from design to manufacturing. They want to have their hands in everything,
Which is pretty different from the traditional automotive industry.
where outsourcing is the norm.
Yeah, so do you think that gives them an edge, that vertical integration?
Potentially, yeah. Having more control over your supply chain could mean more flexibility.
And maybe lower costs, too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Which is really important in such a competitive market.
Especially in the EV market.
Especially now, yeah.
Speaking of competition,
Yeah.
what do you think about their design philosophy? I mean, those cars are sleek.
Definitely targeting a specific customer, right?
Yeah, it seems like they're going for that premium luxury feel.
Exactly. Their Lucid space concept, as they call it, really emphasizes that, maximizing interior space in a smaller footprint.
Yeah, they're all about efficiency and luxury. But it seems like they have bigger ambitions than just being a niche player, right?
Oh, yeah.
They talk about expanding into higher volume segments, diversifying their portfolio.
They definitely want to reach a wider audience.
Absolutely. And not just in one place either. Their international expansion plans are pretty aggressive.
Global domination.
Yeah, they're looking at Europe,
Yeah.
Asia Pacific.
Middle East.
A bold move, though, right?
Yeah. It is. It is. Each region has its own unique challenges.
Different regulations, different consumer preferences.
Absolutely. And it's a big undertaking, establishing a presence in all those markets. But they're clearly confident in the global shift towards EVs.
It's like they're trying to build an electric empire, brick by electric brick.
Yeah, and you know what they're also emphasizing?
What's that?
Their commitment to sustainability.
Yeah, which is smart because that's a huge selling point these days.
For sure, consumers are increasingly looking for companies that align with their values.
Absolutely. But building an empire, as we know, is never easy. And this report also digs into some of the challenges that Lucid faces, especially with their unique business model.
Their direct-to-consumer approach.
Yeah, no dealerships. They're cutting out the middleman entirely.
Which is pretty disruptive, right? It could really shake up the traditional automotive industry.
It definitely has the potential to, by controlling the entire customer journey.
They can offer a more personalized experience.
Yeah, but building that global sales and service infrastructure from scratch.
That's a huge undertaking.
It is. It's a big question mark. Do you think it's ultimately sustainable?
Well, that remains to be seen. It offers advantages, but the challenges are significant. Think about it. Building a network of service centers worldwide,
Yeah.
managing logistics across borders, that all requires a ton of investment and flawless execution.
It's a high-stakes gamble.
High risk, high reward.
Exactly. We'll have to see how it plays out against that traditional dealership model, which has been around forever.
For a reason.
For a reason, exactly. But let's move on to another interesting piece of their business, emission credits.
Ah, yes. The world of ZEV, CFE, and LEV credits.
It's a bit of a complex world,
It is.
but essentially Lucid's getting rewarded for producing those zero-emission vehicles.
Right, and they can sell those credits to other manufacturers who are struggling to meet those emission standards.
So it's a nice little bonus for being good.
For sure, a valuable revenue stream. But it also highlights how complex the regulatory landscape is.
Yeah, it's constantly evolving.
Constantly. Each region has its own set of rules, its own credit systems. So for Lucid,
They really have to stay on top of things.
absolutely, they've got to be agile to maximize that revenue stream.
It seems like every step forward for them comes with a new set of challenges. But before we dive into those challenges,
Okay.
let's take a moment to talk about the people behind the scenes, the ones driving this innovation.
Right, the human element.
Exactly. And the report highlights their commitment to building a diverse and inclusive workforce,
Yeah, they specifically mention their employee resource groups.
which shows they're really trying to create a supportive and equitable environment.
For everyone, it's more than just words, they're taking concrete steps.
Absolutely. They're walking the walk.
And that's important. Company culture is often overlooked.
True.
But it can make or break a company.
especially in a demanding industry like this one. Attracting and retaining top talent is crucial.
It's a war for talent out there.
A war for talent indeed. And a positive work environment can be a huge advantage. It's refreshing to see that emphasis, especially in an industry known for being.
A little cutthroat.
A little bit, yeah. But as you said, every company faces challenges.
Yeah.
And this report doesn't shy away from that.
Not at all. It actually dedicates a whole section
Hmm.
to outlining the potential risks that could hinder Lucid's progress.
Oh, that's where things get really interesting.
Buckle up. The risk factors.
Yeah,
This is where it gets real.
exactly. And they point out some pretty big hurdles,
Oh, yeah.
like their dependence on a limited number of suppliers.
Mm.
Some of them are even single source.
A lot of companies do that. It gives them more control, but
But it's risky, right?
oh, yeah, big time. Any disruption to that supply chain could be a huge problem.
Totally, like a natural disaster or even just like a labor dispute.
Right, exactly. It could really impact production.
And what about cybersecurity? I mean, that's a big one these days.
Huge, especially for a company like Lucid that's collecting so much data.
From the vehicles.
From the vehicles, from the customers, they're a prime target for hackers.
So any kind of breach could be devastating.
Reputation damage, loss of trust lawsuits, it's a nightmare.
It really is. It's like every opportunity comes with a potential pitfall.
It often does.
And then there's the competition for talent,
Oh, yeah, the war for talent is fierce.
especially in tech and automotive.
They need the best engineers, the best software developers.
Designers, manufacturers,
Everyone, they're up against some giants.
like Tesla.
Tesla, yeah, all the traditional automakers who have tons of money.
And all those startups.
That's a tough landscape.
It is. So they really need to cultivate a strong company culture.
To attract people and keep them.
Exactly. Make it a place where people want to work.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then there's the whole regulatory landscape.
Ah, yes. The ever-changing world of EVs and driver assistance tech.
It's a lot to keep up with.
Governments are still figuring out how to regulate this industry.
The rules are always changing.
Safety emissions, data privacy, even the definition of autonomous driving, it's a moving target.
So Lucid has to be really adaptable.
They have to be, otherwise they'll fall behind.
And that costs money
Tons of
to
it.
stay compliant.
Compliance is expensive but necessary.
Absolutely. And all this is happening while the stock market is
Volatile.
very volatile.
One day it's up, the next it's down. It's a roller coaster.
And that can impact even the most promising companies.
For sure, investor confidence is everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for anyone following Lucid, these risk factors are crucial to keep in mind.
Absolutely. They paint a more complete picture.
They do. So let's shift gears a bit and look at their financials.
Okay, let's see how they're doing.
What can we learn from those numbers?
Well, their financial picture is a mix of good and not so good.
As with many companies in this phase,
Exactly. They're still growing, so they're reporting a net loss.
which is expected.
But we need to look at the trend. Is that loss shrinking? Are they moving towards profitability?
Right. And what about their cash flow,
Cash flow from operations, that tells us how much cash they're generating from their core business.
which is super important for sustainability?
Absolutely. They can't just rely on external funding forever.
Speaking of funding, they do have some debt obligations.
They do, including something called redeemable convertible preferred stock.
What is that?
It's basically stock that can be converted into common stock down the line.
Which could dilute the ownership of existing shareholders.
Exactly. So investors need to pay close attention to this.
It could impact their holdings.
Absolutely.
So beyond the numbers, let's talk about their internal controls and management.
The foundation of their financial reporting.
Yeah, the checks and balances.
Exactly. And the report outlines their internal controls over financial reporting.
Which are basically systems to make sure their data is accurate.
And reliable.
And they have management attesting to the effectiveness of these controls.
Along with an independent auditor.
So it's like a second opinion from an expert.
Exactly. But remember, no system is perfect.
There's always a chance of human error.
Or unforeseen circumstances.
Right, which brings us to the legal proceedings mentioned in the report.
The class action lawsuit.
Yeah, about those overly optimistic production and delivery projections.
It happens sometimes in emerging industries.
The hype gets ahead of reality.
Lucid says the claims are without merit.
But lawsuits are never good news.
They're expensive, time-consuming, and distracting.
And they can damage a company's reputation.
For sure. So this adds another layer of complexity to an already challenging situation.
It does. And it's a reminder that even with the best technology and a bold vision,
Things can go wrong.
they can. And for investors, this lawsuit is just one more thing to consider.
When assessing Lucid's future.
Absolutely. Well, we've covered a lot of ground here,
We have
from their grand vision to the nuts and bolts of their business model.
the risks, the financials.
It's clear that Lucid is at a crossroads. It's really fascinating to see a company like Lucid trying to shake things up in the automotive world.
Yeah, they're not afraid to be different, that's for sure.
They've got that drive to make those luxury EVs, that commitment to sustainability.
And that direct-to-consumer approach, going straight to the buyer, it's bold.
Definitely a departure from the traditional way of doing things.
It makes you wonder what the future holds for them, for the whole industry, really.
It does. So, thinking about everything we've uncovered in this deep dive,
All the information in this report.
what would you say are the biggest takeaways for our listeners?
I think it all boils down to their willingness to challenge the status quo. Like, look at that vertical integration.
Yeah, wanting to control so much of the process themselves.
And that direct-to-consumer model. Those are big moves.
Risky moves,
Risky, yeah, but they could pay off big time.
if they can pull it off.
Exactly. But it raises so many questions.
It does. Like, will consumers actually embrace this new way of buying cars?
That's a big one. And can Lucid really handle expanding globally?
With all of those different regulations and markets.
Yeah, it's a lot to juggle. And let's not forget the financial side of things.
Right, can they keep innovating while also managing their money wisely?
Can they keep those investors happy? It's a balancing act for sure.
It is. We've only scratched the surface with this report.
Oh yeah, there's so much more in here to explore.
But this deep dive has given us, and hopefully our listeners, a good understanding of what Lucid's all about.
Their goals, their challenges, the things that could make or break them.
And it's important to remember that this is just a snapshot.
A moment in time.
Exactly. Things are always changing.
Especially in this industry, it's moving so fast.
So as a final thought for our listeners, what do you think will be the most crucial factor in Lucid's success or failure? What should they be watching closely?
That's a tough one. There are so many variables at play. Is it their technology? Is it their leadership? Or maybe it's all about how well they adapt to change. I don't know the answer, but that's what makes this so fascinating.
Yeah, it's a story that's still being written. So keep learning, keep exploring, and most importantly, keep asking those tough questions. That's what the deep dive is all about.